Alright, so for today's lesson, we are going to talk about the key events of the War of 1812. Okay? We'll get into some of the things that occurred, and it's kind of a review from yesterday with the video, but I thought it was a good bridge to do that. So you can take your notes out, start typing or writing them, and make sure we're listening. Alright, go ahead, Angie. So, like Honore kind of said, the United States, this was a war they were not prepared for physically, meaning they did not have trained militia forces. They really didn't have a military leader. There wasn't anyone kind of in charge. Now we're going to get to someone who became an important leader from this war, and there wasn't really much strength in their, I guess, what's the word, confidence. Like, they didn't really have that much morale as a country before this war. Now, what they decided to do was they decided to declare a war on the strongest army in the world at the time. Now, reviewing from yesterday, why would the United States do that? Why would they want to go to war with such a powerful army? To do what? What could fighting against someone like Britain do? Even if you lose the war, what could that do?
Now you can gain respect.
Say it again?
You can gain respect.
Respect, right? It puts them on the stage of respect. They could, even if they lose the war, other countries and England are going to be like, okay, wait, the United States is here, we're good, alright? So pretty much the war was about Canadian territory. We saw that in the video yesterday. But they failed, okay? And the reason they failed, again, because they were unprepared, all right? Next slide. So if you didn't know this, in Washington, how many of you have been to the White House before in Washington, D.C.? So actually during this war, they set it on fire, and the whole thing burned down. I don't know if you guys know that. The British Army set the house on fire, the Capitol building, and other things in Washington, D.C. So that's also like a major, I guess, setback, because when you're a developing nation and your capital and your important government buildings are just burnt down, that's kind of that kind of decreases the morale. When I say morale, you guys know what that means, right? Like confidence and things like that. Yeah, I just wanted to include that because it also gave America motivation to keep fighting, because they wanted to fight for the defense of that, right? Nice. So, how many of you have heard of Andrew Jackson before? Maybe heard of him? So we're actually going to get into him next week, but Andrew Jackson during this war was this guy that rose to, I guess, military strength. That they kind of looked at him as the leader. He led the army during this war, and he ended up fighting with the American army to, again, increase that, like it says, that a morale boost, and it really started this idea of American nationalism and like unity within the country, like, okay, we're here together and we're gonna stick together, all right? And we will get into Jackson next week. We could actually skip this slide. From this, the national anthem was created, all right? So that's another interesting thing about this war. You guys know the national anthem, right? Like before every game and stuff. So this, again, was This was created after this war, because again, it showed that this American nationalistic country was starting to come together and really flourish. All right, even with our last lesson about political parties, where they were a little bit divided on the issues, this war kind of brought it all together again, and everyone was on the same page. I think this is, so this is the last slide. So, the impact and why I cover this war, we don't really get too into it, like in terms of battles, treaties, and people involved. I think the most important theme from this war is as we're going through American history. The first thing is national unity. We've covered that a bunch, okay? America was a new country. They decided to stick up for themselves, and everyone had their support, okay? The second thing, their sovereignty was proven, all right? On the world stage, sovereignty means basically you're your own country, and no one can kind of mess with you and things like that. And this finally proved that it could defend itself against a superpower, okay? And that's gonna set America up for future endeavors, all right? Next week, we're gonna get into expansion and how America's country grew. But this war was really the stepping stone of unity, sovereignty, which means they stood up for themselves, and they started growing as a country, okay? In our last lesson, like I said, we covered parties and kind of the divide that caused, but an event like this really brought it together, all right? Anyone have any questions about the war? I know that was a lot. Again, we didn't get into too much of the nitty gritty, but as long as you guys understand the concept of how this war brought people together and gave a sense of pride, unity, strength for the country to stay intact, right? That is what we got, all right? All right, that's it for the lecture. What we're gonna do now is we are going to watch about a 3-minute video. It's just gonna like portray it so you can kind of get a visual of what was going on. And then, like I said, we're just gonna go over the sheet from yesterday, and then we're good. All right.